Okay, it's recording.
Perfect.
Yay.
All right. So, to start off, it says by asking one team member the following questions, but I vote we just throw it out there for discussion.
Okay.
I don't like putting people on the spot. So, you can all share your thoughts. So let me just read it. It says, give everyone on your team time to choose one of the following topics to share with the group. And this is all like related to the workplace: substance abuse, divorce or family issues, work and home balance, same-sex relationships, and workplace dating or relationships. Any of your thoughts about the following topics?
Go ahead, Laura.
Sorry, I didn't know when. I thought there was more topics. So I think I know there's a lot of topics. I have something to say about like was it homework and balance? Or
finding the balance between home and work.
Okay. So like off personal experience, like going to school, being single before, I tried to make it a balance to like work a certain amount of hours and then go to school full time. Well, the job I worked at the time would constantly say, oh, we need you. Can you come in and work? This person came in sick and blah, blah, blah. And so I'd end up working like full time and going to school full time. And then finally I met with my bishop, and he shared an article with me from the conference from David A. Bednar. And it had to do along the lines with the Holy Ghost. The whole talk was about the Holy Ghost. And I think that's when we can find like a balance. It's like if we're like seeking out guidance to find out like, oh, how many hours do I need to work to provide for my family? And, you know, am I going to have some time to like do my homework and things like that? But right now my house is not in balance because of finals.
Amen, sister.
Yeah, clothes are just everywhere, and I'm embarrassed when people come over, but yeah, that's kind of a thought I have, but I don't know if anyone else is.
I'm definitely in the same boat. I'm working almost 40 hours a week, going to school full time.
Dang, girl.
It's rough. Does anybody else have any thoughts?
I have thoughts on workplace relationships. It's a story my husband sadly has to go through. His boss decided it would be a great idea to hire his girlfriend to work /wife/ whatever the heck she is as one of his employees that he's in charge of, and they're going through relationship troubles right now, and it's just making the workplace hell to be in. Like, he's gotten way more controlling for no reason, and it's just a bad situation. And that's why you don't work with family in the same department. Don't do it.
No.
On that matter, boy, I've been through all of this stuff. I've seen it.
Maggie, tell us all.
But
Tell us all, wise woman.
This one about the having relationships, if they date, according to what I understand in my company, that if a man is married and he decides he wants to divorce someone, he can look at one of the managers in the store if he's interested in her, and if she's vice versa, then it's great. But what happens when they have relationship issues? It begins to become a really hostile environment, and I don't like that stuff. I really don't.
It's awful.
They say that it's okay for one of the managers, you know, if he's married even, he can fool around with one of the managers.
What the heck? That's like what?
I got a problem with that. You know, when I first heard it, I thought, maybe I'm not hearing this right. I heard it wrong, maybe. Nope, but I heard it again the second time and said, oh no.
What the heck?
But the one that I really wanted to talk to y'all about was the manager for my department was going through a divorce. She's young, relatively young, very young. Her estranged husband had just come back from Iraq. But while he was there, he met and found some other woman. I think that's what she was. I'm not sure. But long story short, he comes to her workplace and he took off the license plates off the back of her car because he didn't want to be responsible for it anymore. So he comes into, she parks her car, she comes in, he's out there in the parking lot waiting on her, and he takes off the license plate. She gets wind of it, she hears about it, she goes outside, she comes back in, and I'm looking at her, and she's a mess. And I said, what in the world is the matter? She said, he jacked my car. And I went,
Gosh.
Good
he did what?
Lord.
He took her license plate from the car, and she goes into the refrigerator. We have a huge refrigerator where all the flowers are. She goes in there, comes back out, and she's even a worse mess. I said, girlfriend, go get yourself cleaned up, go get a cup of coffee, do something, but I can handle the department, you go. And she goes, but I said, never mind, just go.
Get out of here.
But from that point on, things just avalanched into what I call a hot mess. Is that the appropriate term?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely a hot mess.
It's just one thing after another. It just kept avalanching. And I discovered that he was what I call stalking her.
Oh, good.
I told her to go to management, and I said, you let them know what's going on here. And they jumped out there and they protected her from that point on. But till that point was the case, oh my God, bless her heart. It was a mess. Oh God.
I think it's interesting, like with all these different issues that it like, especially like with you, Maggie, like, and I don't think they intend it this way, but because of like family issues, work-home balance, substance abuse,
I see that too. I saw that too.
Yeah, it like gives everyone else like the personification of like, well, now I have to step up because someone else is, going through something that, they're going through. So I think it puts like an extra stress on everyone else. And
Yes.
The
customers could feel it in my department. They asked me what was going on, and I said, no, we're just fine.
But it's not. And so I think it's
No.
It's that fine line of like, okay, well, that's cool and all, but like, where do you draw the line to say, okay, enough is enough? Like, you need to go figure out stuff like with you and what you need to do, and like we need to focus on work, and how do you get them to do that? It's like,
it took me about 4 weeks to lead her to go through and go ahead and file if she had to, because he had photos of himself with other girls on the planes. My goodness. Oh, it just went from bad to worse. It was awful. Sorry about that.
Insane.
Yes.
So,
Maggie, I'm speechless.
sorry, go ahead.
I was flabbergasted.
I'm speechless right now.
Because we've had about 3 weddings of women marrying other women, and they work in our workplace. I know that one of them, who's recently married, she married last week Sunday. She is, if I understand this right now, I might be wrong. One of them accepts the male position and one accepts the female position. Is that correct?
Depends. Some same-sex couples don't have that distinction.
Well, this one did. This female is very, very aggressive. And
Okay.
one of the young partners, she's a young little mother. She's not even half the size of this woman. Jumped on her and razzed her left and right, up and down, and I got a little upset on that one. I had to put a stop to that. I said,
Wait, what happened?
She jumped on one of the younger partners in the produce department, and the young partner she's a little thing, and she has a little daughter, infant daughter. This is the male part of the male. I don't know. I even know how you explain it. She accepted the male role. Let's put it that way. And she got married. Not long after that, she jumped on one of the partners over here in the produce department, and I simply said, no, please don't do that here. That's not appropriate behavior. And she attempted to rise on me.
Oh, bless.
Yeah.
Bless your
Around
soul, Maggie. You have to go through this. Oh,
around Christmas time, it gets a little hairy.
In the South, we would say, "Oh, bless her heart," but not.
There you go. Bless her heart.
That's some southern blood in me, apparently.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay.
So kind of going off of those topics that we discussed, how, I know Maggie, you kind of talked about how you address these issues, or the ones you talked about in the workplace. Does anybody else have any ideas of how they would deal with these issues in the workplace? How they would address them with either coworkers or if you were a supervisor?
oh, jinx. Someone owes me a soda. Who said,
It's me.
you owe me a soda? No, I'm just kidding.
No. So one thing that I know my husband has done is he's talked to HR. Like we've also been talking, like, don't talk to them about it. You don't want to get in the middle of it, because that just would drag you into the problem too, and it'd explode. It'd be a bad situation. So just let HR know what's going on, and then just keep logs, basically. That's something else like my sister does at her job is she's been having some issues with them, having her, like, when she clocks out, they're like, oh, we need you to do this thing really fast, really badly, and they won't pay her for it. But she's been keeping logs.
Yeah, if she gets caught off the clock, she's going to get herself into trouble.
So she's been keeping logs of, like, who told her to do these things and, you know, what she did. And I've suggested my husband do the same with this situation with his boss and his girlfriend, wife thing. And hopefully he'll be protected and it'll get solved eventually. It's so hard to deal with stuff that's outside of work's control, like relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
That all you can do is just report what's happened, write down documentation, protect yourself, and wait it out.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you tell a manager, unless you have all the information that you need for them, will be the approach that they're going to take, don't say anything to the manager until you have more than enough information before you approach HR.
And you definitely don't want to do it out of strong emotion. Like if it's like the last straw kind of moment, you want to snap it up, don't approach them. Don't do it. You'll just get in more trouble.
That's true.
We even have a contract where I work. Oh, it's okay. Scared my dog half to death. We have a contract where I work that we sign when we start working there that we won't get involved with coworkers or patients, obviously. But we're not allowed to be involved with coworkers. Like if someone were to get involved, one of them would have to be let go.
I think a lot of businesses are doing that now. Or at least like they have to move to another department.
Yeah, I know it can be difficult with larger companies, but I know my work, we only have 6 employees.
Courtney, I have a question.
Yeah.
You said don't get involved with other coworkers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So you're meaning emotionally, not socially.
Well, the doctor I work for doesn't really want us to be hanging out socially. Like he can't stop us from doing it. We didn't sign anything saying we can't. But he said, I just don't want any drama. And so he's like,
he's wise.
But I mean, we see each other more than our significant others. Okay. So it's kind of hard not to be friends, but it's definitely a good
because you work with them 24/7, right?
Yeah, I mean 12-hour shifts. Like I'm with them. Yeah. I see them more than I see my husband. So but I think in some cases when you can have something like that, it's not necessarily a bad idea.
True.
To at least have family members or significant others working in different departments.
I know with like my sister, she actually works at the same company as my dad and 3 of our cousins. They work at Ancestry, and they've made sure to either, if they are like in the same department, they make sure they're not on the same teams, or that like, because my dad's a higher ranking than she is, they make sure that she's not directly under him or anything. And they, I guess because Ancestry is all about family history, they don't really look at it too badly. They're just like, oh, cool, even more reason to have you here. But it's something they're still pretty careful about.
Oh my goodness. Huh, interesting. Okay.
So they kind of had us, it says to kind of have people share their own experiences, which we already kind of did. Let's see. It just asks after the first person tells about their own experience and how they think it would impact the workplace, ask other students to respond. Do you agree? Have you seen other similar issues? And they're just asking everybody to talk about an issue, which I know we've kind of already done. Does anybody else have any thoughts on any of those?
I have one. I have a question for Abigail.
Mm-hmm.
Your husband's, the other gal that's involved in the,
Mm-hmm.
is it
The
your boss?
girlfriend?
Husband's boss?
It's a weird situation. Like, it's the boss is hired his girlfriend, but they have a kid together,
Oh.
and they've been going out for like how long, hun? Like more than a year at this point, probably.
That's awesome.
And they're not married, so it's like they basically should be married, but since they're not, the company couldn't like do much, and it's a hot mess. That's what it is. It's a hot mess.
I see. We have a couple of those at work too, and I just take care of it all.
Yeah, and the only reason it happened was they were desperate to get a person in the kitchen. It's such a high turnover rate in that kitchen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I have a situation. I know school is kind of like a work job, right? So this week I was studying for finals, and I went to class in the classroom an hour before, and it was for this big exam. It was like 16 chapters. And this guy was just venting about his wife. And for me, I don't ever want to give advice to a married man, because you need to go talk to your wife, like you shouldn't get advice from someone like
Shouldn't vent
of
to
the opposite sex. And so like I feel like that kind of relationship is not good in the workforce area at school, because like if you have a problem with your wife, you go to your wife, right? Or if I have a problem with my husband, I'll go to my husband. And he just would not. So finally I said, I think you should please be quiet, because we're trying to all study for the final, and maybe you should talk to your wife later. And then he went off about how I shouldn't have interrupted him. And then he got mad at me, and I was like, we're all trying to study for the final. Yeah.
Like, shut up, dude. Like, leave us alone.
I was like, work this out with your wife.
Final.
No, I feel like,
annoying.
Laura, I feel like I've seen that a lot too on campus.
Yeah.
Because there's like a ton of married couples here, and I work in the financial aid office. So like finances and couples, especially don't really work out together. I mean,
not a great
for
combo.
most part it does, but you always get like those couples that like have really weird situations, and we as a financial aid office have to like figure it out of what's happening. And it just sucks because like we don't want to pry into someone's like private life, but like sometimes we have to.
Yeah, I mean, it's finances.
Yeah, it's finances. And so like I feel like a lot of times, I know this is maybe not, I guess it's like work home balance, I guess.
Yeah.
But just trying to figure out like how you can like bring that up to someone without like taking them off. Kind of like Laura, like you obviously didn't do that out of like to be noisy. Nosy, thank you.
Yeah.
But like sometimes you just need to like stand your ground and just speak up, and I think sometimes like that's all it takes.
Yeah.
But other times it's like as severe as like what Abigail's husband is going through, like that's something that needs to be bypassed and taken directly to HR. And
especially since it's his boss.
Yeah, especially since
he can't just go to his boss and be like, hey.
Hey, Abby, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is he going to say anything to HR?
He has. He's talked about it, and he's keeping some logs. And he's, it's just writing out the fire. It's like that dog meme that's inside a burning house and going, "This is fine.
This is fine. That's how I feel this week.
Yeah,
This is fine."
Courtney.
Yeah.
I like your tree.
Thanks.
Don't have one
Um,
up yet.
okay, so it says,
One day,
Um,
Maggie.
are there any other issues that you see in society that are likely to impact you in the workforce? So I'll give you all a second to think about that. I actually have one that we had to deal with today
Ooh.
at work. Today was one of my 12-hour days, and so we had a couple different experiences. The first is we have a patient. We recently hired a African-American man to work with us. He is amazing. He is hilarious, the nicest person you'll ever meet. He's married with 2 kids, like stand-up guy. And we had a patient come in first thing this morning, will not let him touch her. Like, all it is he has to put a harness on her for the spinal decompression, which you don't really touch the person for that. Like, you just tighten it. And then he wouldn't let him put her on the electrical muscle stimulation, which that one I understood because he is having to lift up her shirt to put the TENS unit pads on. So I'm like, we understood that one, but she would not let him touch her. She didn't want a man touching her at all. She didn't want, and we only have 2 men that work with us, but she refused. And I understand. And she's also I have a coworker who is not Christian. She's the sweetest girl, but she believes in energy in the universe instead of.
Oh, okay.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. And this same patient is not aware that she's not a Christian, didn't ask, but keeps bringing her Christian CDs every single time she comes into the office, saying, you need to listen to this. This is amazing. You need to listen to this. And she's like, I don't know how to bring up religion to this woman without offending her and saying that I don't share her beliefs, because she keeps bringing Christian CDs and literature and all these things to this girl who, bless her heart, she's just like trying to be nice and take them, but she doesn't have any desire to keep them. And so we've been dealing with that, trying to figure out how to find the balance between religion and the workplace. And then also we had a patient make a racist comment about the man that we had hired. She wanted to know what his qualifications were to be able to work there. Nobody has ever had any before. Like, we're getting trained on the job and demanding to know his qualifications.
What the heck?
And how he got a job there. And so my coworker just explained, well, he's very qualified, and explained his background a little bit and just said, he's got a lot. She goes, to explain that he was a registered nursing assistant. And she said, oh, well, I don't really like them, because she said they seem to be rude and entitled. And she leaned into my coworker and said, especially the black ones. And my coworker was like, so she was lumping our coworker into this group, and I understood
so sad.
from a personal experience that was bad, but this was the first day that she'd ever met him, and she wouldn't let him harness her. She wouldn't let him do anything for her. She asked one of my other coworkers, I would rather have you harness me. I don't want him harnessing me. And so that's one of the other things we're dealing with. Long story short, have any of you had any experiences like that, or how would you handle it?
I have one.
I'm honestly curious, because I have no idea what we're
I'm
doing.
almost tempted to almost be like, we don't want your patronage anymore. If you're going to treat our employees like that, heck no. We don't want your money. We don't want to. No, out. Get out.
You want to be cautious when you do something when it comes to
guys,
Clancy, you said you had one?
Oh, yeah. So, like in healthcare, It's been really interesting to see like the different generations, and I think that's one that's pretty prevalent. Is there's a lot of the older generation in like healthcare leadership, that are kind of under the impression that us as like millennials or like the younger generation is not cut out for this specific type of job. And so with that, they could really care less if like they give us a shot. And so like it was kind of interesting. Not that it happened on my internship, but I could kind of sense that was kind of like a thing. As like you have like all these old people that just want to stay until they die, pretty much, but they don't want to like take the time to like train like the new generation to take their place because they feel like they can do a better job. And so I think it's just hard to close that gap. Because I mean, I have probably the same ambition and goals as the CEO of that company, but I'm just younger. I may not know a lot, but like, I'm like willing to learn. So I think that's one thing that I've kind of seen lately is just that generation gaps.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to offend anyone, but.
Oh, no. Nope, not offended.
Appreciate the input.
But Clancy, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In that you are younger and you are willing to learn, and there are older people who probably will be there until they die. That is the true point. Don't let it defray you. Don't let it defray you at all. But the issue concerning Courtney's issue concerning the Black gentleman, if the woman does not want him to touch her, then I suggest that you take her up on her suggestion because she could make things more difficult. It could create bigger problems for him. And prejudice is still alive and thriving. I don't know if you know that.
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
So the gentleman, if anything would help, is for y'all to take her suggestions and let someone else harness her. Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
And he can stand by or stand outside the door should he be needed. But I suggest that because he's skilled, he needs to perform his duties. Otherwise, what's the point of him being there? If you stop and think about it.
Yeah.
This is where you got to stand up for yourselves.
Mm.
Yeah, my coworker was so taken aback. She just said, "Okay, we'll see you next week. Bye."
I probably would have done the same. And then as soon as she left, just turned to someone and go, "What the fuck?"
That's what she did. That's exactly what she did. She walked out the door. My coworker was like, "I don't know what to do."
Your coworker and I could be friends.
Yeah. Okay. And then we kind of touched on this already. It says remaining meeting time 4 minutes, so we're gonna wrap it up real quick.
Cool.
Wrap it up.
Does anybody think that any of these issues will continue to impact the workforce in the next 10 years? Like over
Yes.
the next
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Heck yes.
I feel like these issues are going to still continue, either get severe or like, maybe crack down more on the actual rules or like, yeah.
Yeah, that was my question. The next question, do you think they're going to get more severe? Do you think there will be some that are kind of done away with because they've been dealt with? Or do you think these issues will
No, I don't think these issues are going to leave us anytime soon. And I
don't think they'll ever leave us. Probably.
Because these problems don't have any specific religion attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
All religions are affected by them irregardless. So I see them getting worse much rather than better. Because I don't know if you guys read that material. And I noticed in China, when I looked at a couple of movies that I've seen, they have taken away the walls and they put these people in these bubbles. I don't know if you've ever seen them. And they're really cool looking. It's open. Everybody can kind of eavesdrop on everybody else, and we can have somewhat eye contact with everybody in here. And I find it unique, but it's interesting. But I think as a result of that, because we want the workplace to change in its aesthetics and the way it looks and stuff like that, I can see more issues coming, and I'm glad I'm retiring next year.
Lucky bomb.
And y'all are gonna have to deal with it. Bless your hearts.
Yeah.
And you'll probably have more problems than you know what to do with, taking on new, different looks. I mean, you think this is bad. It's gonna go from bad to worse.
And I think it's even more worse because the world is changing so rapidly with what they believe and what they think.
Yes.
Like, LGBTQ thing wasn't like a thing like 5-10 years ago,
Yeah.
Not a major thing,
and
yeah.
now it's like mainstream, and like there's so many just added complexities with the world today, and like we as maybe people in leadership someday are gonna have to figure out how to come up with solutions to these problems without incurring the biggest damage to the company or whatever.
And it doesn't help that as more of these issues pop up, the more sensitive the world's been getting.
Yes.
Like just working in a school, it's so hard to implement proper discipline and such because I'm not supposed to touch those precious little snowflakes. It's not allowed, and it's just if they're not going to learn it, then I can't imagine the workforce that's going to come out of these kids. It's going to be a nightmare.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is true. I wanted to tell y'all something. And